In a world increasingly shaped by technology, the HumanUp Imperative explores the significance of human connection with each other, with the communities we serve, and perhaps most importantly, with ourselves. Join Rex Wallace and his guests as they discuss the ever-important role of authentic, meaningful connection in healthcare. It's time to Human Up.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we have a special episode. There are a few times in life when human connection is more important than, when people are going through some difficult time, some difficult chapter in their life. And today we find a lot of our connections, a lot of our friends, family, colleagues, going through a shared experience, having a shared experience where, they're seeking employment in a job market that is a bear, that is very difficult. And we're going to get deep into that. So, the people that are not seeking employment right now, I think a lot of us don't know how to help. We don't know what to say, what to do, or in any practical way, how to help people who are in that difficult market right now seeking a new role. So today we have two guests who are actually people who are in that role, who are in that chapter in their lives where they are seeking employment in this very difficult market. And our objective today is to find ways to really discover and uncover ways that we can help, right, when we're not in that situation right now, but things we can do practically and emotionally to really help. So please join me as we human up today with Deb Dorsch and Orton. Guys, thanks for coming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So hey, let's start off before we get into the questions with just let's help everyone kind of understand a little bit more about you guys. So Deb, let's start with you. Just who is Deb Dorsch? What's your story?
Hi. So thank you again for having me. So I'm Deb Dorsch. Currently in a program manager role with an organization that is going to be dissolving at the end of the year. So I find myself, seeking employment at this particular point in time. I've been in the quality and or compliance space for over, 27 years now. Very fortunate that I've only worked for two companies during that period in time. So I don't have a lot of that experience that some people do with multiple organizations. So that's where I find some of the challenges that I was only, this is the second company that I've ever been at. And I was hoping to stay here till I retired. But again, just being in the quality space, everything from Medicare to Medicaid to RFI or RFPs, NCQA accreditation, CMS audits, the whole gamut. When you think of quality, you think of, a jack of all trades, master of none, right? But that's been my space. That's kind of me in a nutshell. So.
Okay. Thanks. So that's helpful. And I will double click on some of those things in just a minute, but Burn, let's go to you first. And what's your story? Who's Burn Orton?
Sure. Well, that's going to take more than this podcast, but I will say 20 years of experience, predominantly focused on learning and development. About 15% or 15 of those years was spent entirely on learning and development, and then just organically taken on quality assurance roles, data analytics, data visualization as part of kind of that widening toolkit. I have an interesting background because before I joined the corporate workforce, I graduated with a nursing degree and entered the clinical workforce very early. But got burned out at a very young age, no coping mechanism to speak of. And so I decided to join a call center. And 20 years later, I've become a trainer, training supervisor, training manager, director. My most recent role was at a company in South Florida where I was vice president of learning and development and quality assurance and insights. Our bread and butter was Medicare, Medicaid, and supplemental benefits. And because of just the economy and things that were going down, we experienced massive reductions in force. My team at our peak were about 60 people, all told, split between training and quality. By the time I was impacted in the last wave, there were about 7 left in the organization, or in my team, all told. And the organization was from 3,000 to now I hear a little over 1,200. And I've been at this since January when I was let go.
So, I have the privilege of knowing both of these people, and Deb and I actually, our companies work together now. Burn and I worked together about 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I have tremendous respect for both these people. They're in very different situations, as you can tell from the way they just described themselves. So, Burn since January has been seeking, right? Has been not actively employed at the moment, but just spending all your time looking for
Yeah.
your next role, right?
Yeah.
Deb, her company closing a line of business, and where she is impacted, and a lot of other employees still has a role for, I guess it's through the end of the year, right, Deb? Something like that, or at some point. I'm not sure how much you can share. Sorry, but still, still actively still employed. But there's a short. A short time frame, an end date, right, where she knows that's ending, and she is actively seeking that next role. So to prevent a gap or a long gap. So two very different situations that I think a lot of people find themselves in right now. We have more than one. I'm aware of more than one health plan who is closing a line of business, like the Medicare line of business, because it's so difficult right now, where there are people in Deb's position right now. I know tons of people in Burn's position too. So two different perspectives. And that was, we wanted to have those different perspectives as we had this discussion. So with that, and Deb, let's go back to you. We've talked about how challenging the market is right now. So, can you share a little bit about what the search has been like in just a few words? And, while you're at it, if you have a metaphor or an image or something that kind of resonates with what that experience is right now, what would that be?
A needle in a haystack.
Okay.
It's so challenging right now. So it's frustrating. I'm trying to search for jobs where I know I can make a difference, and align myself with an organization's values and morals, and what they want to do moving forward, that also align with my skill set, right? But it's extremely challenging. There's a lot of jobs out there. A lot of companies are hiring, but it's a matter of making sure that when you read that job description, that it's something that you're passionate about. At least for me, right? I don't want to just apply to apply. I want to make sure that it's meaningful for me. And that's where I think some of my frustration lies, is because there's a lot of those jobs that are out there. But maybe they don't align with where I'm at from a salary perspective, or they're not necessarily remote, or it's a different time zone. And then, I've been very fortunate. I've had a couple interviews, but then they found out, throughout the process, that due to budget constraints, those positions are now on hold. So, you go through all of that, the application process, the one or two interviews potentially, only to find out, hey, they're making a decision to hold this position for now. And again, to your point, Rex, I'm finding myself where I need to find work. This will be the first time in 40 years that I've never had a job.
Right.
And that's scary. I don't want to necessarily go down the road and sling burgers, right?
Yeah.
I want to find something,
Sure.
with my career path. But it's overwhelming. There's so many different jobs out there, so many different organizations. I do have a compliance background as well. So do I stay in healthcare? Do I move to another realm because I do have that compliance background? So those are just some of the difficult challenges that I'm facing personally in this job search.
And for you specifically right now with your situation, I assume you feel like you've got a little, you can still be selective, right? And I'm not saying Burn can. I'm eager to hear where Burn's head is too, after a few months of not being actively employed, right? But Deb, do you feel like you can still rule out those positions and be pretty selective in what you're applying for, because you still have some time before your current job changes?
So I don't have much time,
Sure.
but yet I'm still trying to be selective.
Yeah.
There's some larger organizations out there that have, 5, 6 different jobs that I would be qualified for, that would make me passionate about getting up and going to work, right?
Sure.
But yet I don't want to apply to all 5. Because then to me, that also sends a message to the organization. Well, they're just looking for something, but really, what are they looking for? So I am trying to be strategic in how I'm applying my searches. But again, that's just me personally. I don't want to just apply and just hope something sticks.
Sure. What about you, Burn? What's the search been like for you?
Well, Deb, I feel like I am the more senior in the VUCA High, and I'm about to welcome you and give you a tour of what this landscape is going to look like. But joking aside, I've been very fortunate. The last three roles that I've had, including the ones that we were in Rex, I was very fortunate that I had a mentor that keyed me in for it and said, this might be a good fit for you. For the last two roles. The only exception was coming out of the pandemic and applying for Uber. And that was just the blind luck, and went through all of the paces and landed the role. That was really my only true experience to applying and being considered for a role. But since January, I've actually, because I've had a lot of time to think about this, I've actually put it in a dashboard, and I created an online dashboard to see and track my application status.
I saw this on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
Yeah. So, and I only started tracking in earnest in April because, the first couple of weeks I thought it'll be fine. Something will come up. I'll be able to get through it. I've got experience. I've got the skill set. It's not going to be a big deal. But as time dragged by and I'm applying to these jobs, I'm like, there has to be some kind of rhythm and sense in my day. So I started tracking the stats, started tracking it with real and true veracity starting in April. And since April, Deb, I want you to hold on to something or take a seat. 365 jobs as of yesterday. And
Wow.
1% have landed onto interviews. About 30% were outright rejections for various reasons, like you alluded to, where, we posted it, but then the budget changed, or this role is no longer active, or just whatever reason. And then about 70% they were applications that are lost in the wind. So it's very much VUCA high school is what I like to call it in my head, the circus. So it's been a challenge.
What's been the toughest practical hurdle? So, and you both are kind of alluding to this, but just, if you can specify, when we think about networking with others or filling out applications, getting to the interviews, going through the interviews, something else. Is there a practical hurdle that jumps out at you? And Deb, back to you if you have an answer.
So for me, the application process.
Okay.
It's monotonous. It's the same over and over and over again. Whether you through ZipRecruiter, Indeed, LinkedIn, or you go directly to their websites. But it's tedious, right? You download your resume, but you end up redoing something anyway, or adding different skills or whatnot. So that's the tedious part for me. And then creating, a lot of times they send you to the folks' homepages, the organization's homepages, then creating, an account to be able to log in. But Burn, to your point, I think my largest challenge is being ghosted, right? Or what I like to call is ghosted, is that application is out there, but you just don't know the status of it. Or you go to check on it and it still says in review, but it's been in review for 3 months. So what's happening with the job? Where's that? Is there going to be any feedback? Even if it's AI generated, is there going to be feedback? But I am very fortunate that I have great mentors and peers over the years. So they've been able to reintroduce me to contacts or introduce me to new contacts. And, I've had some very successful meetings with those folks to know what I'm looking for, and they're helping me. So that's a bonus. So I'm very fortunate in that respect. But it's the application process. It's so tedious, and it's just monotonous. It's over and over and over again. And, and depending upon the job, you may need to tweak something, right? So you really do have to pay attention. You just can't just upload something. You do need to pay attention.
Same experience for you, Burn, or something else?
100% agree with what Deb was saying. In fact, Deb, one of my metrics on my dashboard is the ghost rate. So my ghost rate is 70%, and I call it the ghost rate intentionally.
Right.
But yes, so the monotony was definitely very difficult. I think how I navigated through that was trying to understand how to really truly leverage the technology piece. So I've built flows on Zapier. I've tracked it on Notion, which is another tool, which kind of helped eliminate some of the monotony, the repetitive things, filling in your information and your experience, your background. So that's helped a lot. But for me, one of the biggest ones was the user experience. How do I actually get in front of a human being instead of my resume getting stuck behind the ATS? And it's gotten to the point, as you can imagine, with close to 400 applications, where I know automatically which ATS I'm dealing with, and there are jobs where I'm just not going to deal with this ATS because it's going to take forever, and the juice is not going to be worth the
Mhm.
squeeze. And just gravitating towards what I know are more user-friendly experiences and which have a better shot of actually getting in front of a recruiter to at least review my experience.
And we do have, we're having this episode with the two of you, and then right after this, we do have another episode that we're recording with HR recruiter people, a very similar discussion, but from the other end of the spectrum, right? Where these are the people who are either trying to connect you or actually the hiring people that are trying to hire you. And we want to take some things we learned from your episode to actually ask them specific questions. So we will be doing that as well. Some of your feedback already. I would love to hear their take on. The ghosting thing, right? I'm sure they're probably going to say just the volume. There's so many people applying now, but there's got to be a better way. And curious if there's what their feedback would be there or their guidance.
I do have something to
Yes.
add to that really quickly, Rex. Now,
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
fully aware of what the recruiters are facing. I have lots of folks in talent acquisition, and they tell me they post a job, and within the first 5 minutes, they're getting hundreds of applications, and it's
Right.
physically impossible to sift through all of that. And so now it's become a balancing act between how can I use AI to leverage and put my best foot forward, but also recruiters are using AI to find that best foot that's being put forward. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, to be sure. And
Hmm.
so to your recruiter friends
Yeah.
on your next podcast, I understand where you're coming from as well. I know the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And even our company, we're a small company. We have, about a dozen employees. And when we post for a new role, we can't leave it up very long because of the same thing. We will get inundated with, with 100 applications and resumes, in the first day. And it's just impossible for us to go through all of those. So we will turn it off pretty quickly so that we, don't have so many, but which is not a good, that's not the right thing to do either, I feel like, right? Because you could be limiting your pool, but I don't know. It'll be a good conversation in the next one for sure. So what would you want, what do you wish employers understood better about about job seekers in today's market? Burn, how about you? Oh, sorry, Deb, go ahead.
No, well, I mean, I think a little bit to Burn's point earlier is that your resume speaks for you, right?
Yeah.
But even that 10 or 15-minute conversation, if you're able to get one with a recruiter, to really make sure that you understand what that position is and that you have that skill set for that position. And then, for me personally, some of that is really being transparent as well. If you don't have the skill set, then I'm not going to waste your time. Don't waste my time. Right. Thank you for the conversation. But I think a lot of it is that human touch. I think that's what's lacking in the process, just because there is so much AI and because the market is so competitive right now. Everybody's looking.
And related to that, stay there for a second. Not so much the human touch, but just in understanding what the required skills are. Like, I'm curious about compensation too. Like, is it like what percentage of roles that you're looking at out there actually list the compensation before you, so you can weed it out quickly, or do you have to go through the whole process and then at some point along the journey understand, hey, it's not enough, but you've already gone through the process and wasted a lot of time?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of the jobs have the compensation there,
Good.
but it's not the correct compensation, because I've had discussions with recruiters who have told me, oh, so we posted this, but really it's this. And then at that point in time, it's like, okay, well, I can't do that, or, you've posted a senior level position, but you're really talking entry level salary. Right. And they're like, well, we do that. I'm like, for what purpose? Well, so we can get the applications in, so we can get the applicants. But it's really, that's just not copacetic for me. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, that's the biggest thing that I found is if it's there, it may not be accurate.
Okay.
And then sometimes it doesn't match what the skill set is, or what I'm used to from my experience, or what other folks that I'm working with telling me in the industry. No, that's not really right. This is more what we're seeing from a compensation perspective. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, that's knowing what you can live with, right? So that's, when I found this out, I did a deep dive into my budget and tried to figure out what is the minimum that I can live on. Right. So I'm not eating hot dogs and ramen every day. Right. And I can keep a roof over my head. So I think that's the other thing is just know, because it is so competitive, that you may not be able to match the salary that you're making now, but what can you live with?
As an entry point. So I've heard, in Burn, real quick before we jump to you, I've seen, multiple posts on LinkedIn where people were saying, they reached that point to where they got offers, but they finally got offers. They weren't as much as the last role, and they were having that same conversation in their head, Deb, like, is this enough to where at least I can sleep at night, right? At least I'll have something and I'll be okay. I won't be where I want to be, but it'll be a stepping stone to hopefully get back to where I was before. That's a difficult place to be, I know, but a place where a lot of people find themselves. Burn, what about you?
Same sentiments. In fact, while I've found that a lot of employers will post, pay ranges, especially for the states where they're required to post the pay ranges, they will post a pay range, but it's not a realistic pay range. That is also not commensurate to the job description. It'll be a senior level listing, but your pay range listed will be starting at $50,000 up to $750,000. Where do I land in that spectrum? That's an unrealistic expectation to understand where that truly is, and you just kind of figure it out and do research. So that has definitely been a friction point for me as I'm going through this. And going back to what do I wish employers invested a little bit more time on besides the human touch, is that user experience as you're going through these application portals and their websites. I feel like we've come to the point where, do I really have to copy paste everything from my resume after I've uploaded back into the platform? I feel like we should have something better now in this day and age.
Right. Are either of you using AI? You said that they're using AI on the employer side, right? To weed out people, et cetera. Are you leveraging AI at all in any way?
I have not.
Okay.
I've used it, but I am working diligently again with some of my mentors and my peers. And, I'm creating my resume myself. I'm creating my own cover letters, creating my own thank you letters, working at what those keywords are that should be there that would generate on the opposite side an AI hit, right?
Right.
But I'm doing a lot of that work myself, maybe to my detriment. I'm not quite sure, but
Burn?
Yes, so I have been shamelessly and being fully cognizant that AI is a double-edged sword. I've been very fortunate to have my GPT model since it first came out, and I've been working with it consistently over the last 3 or 4 years. It's gotten to the point where I now we now have a relationship, if you will.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he has named himself, so he calls himself Torch, because I'm Burn. Um, and I so the way that I use AI, I would like to think is, at least from an ethical perspective, where I use the AI to spot where I have no visibility to what the potential flaws are, what the mistakes are, for my AI to challenge me in the way that I'm positioning this position, or this statement or this accomplishment. And I say, this is what I want to be able to project. So I use AI to kind of hone my presentation and how I can best, you know, put my foot forward, if you will, while also being very cognizant of the fact that sloppy AI is a detriment. I know of jobhire.ai as an example, where you just load your resume and then it will apply for you in your sleep without you even knowing that it's applying for you, just based on your settings and your preferences. I don't think that
Hmm.
that's ethical too, because now you're putting a burden on the recruiters of, I'm just getting inundated with, there is no human on the other side of that applying as well.
Hmm.
So, like I said, catch 22. But I have found that at least it's been useful for me to help
Hmm.
challenge my perceptions, my projections on how I want to, show myself up to the world.
Yeah. I can see where the way I use it, I think I would be leveraging it if I were in your shoes right now. Like you are, Burn. So, and Deb, it's definitely something to look into. It's still
Hmm.
relatively new, and a lot of people are still trying to figure it out. But it's not a necessity. But I do think it could be helpful in, yeah, crafting even letters, and like maybe help with the buzzwords, or this, like Deb, you were saying, the specific words that you're trying to weave those into your information, so that AI does get a hit on the other side. I can see where it will be helpful. So, and as helpful and insightful as those questions have been so far, these next few are really where I want to spend some time making sure people know how to help. So this next one is, what kinds of practical support from friends or colleagues have made a difference for you? So actually something, yeah, people have done in a practical way. Deb.
So I think the biggest thing for me is, when I told folks that I was open to employment, right, is making some of those connections and some of those
Sure.
reconnections, leveraging the network that I do have, the friends that I do have, to be able to put me in contact with, some recruiting agencies, or just folks that they know, are leaders in certain organizations that may be looking for something, and not being afraid to reach out to people to say, hey, there's a job open at your organization. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Do you know the hiring manager, those sorts of things. So for me, I've been, really leveraging that network. But then also internally here, since there's a handful of us that are losing our jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of built our own little network. So we're looking out for each other as well.
Perfect.
Hey, in my network, these 3 jobs are available here. Here's the link. Why don't you take a look and see what you can do? So that's really what it is doing that, and not being afraid to go out and Google, an organization and their website, trying to find out what it is. And, I've got a couple friends that I'm like, okay, so you need to look at A, B, and C for me today and let me know what jobs are out there. And then, I've got my kids looking at C, D, and E to see what's over here.
Yeah.
So it's really takes a community, it takes a village.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate that I have a nice village and network around me that's supporting me.
When you're researching those companies, are you going mainly to their website, or are you going to their LinkedIn page, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Googling everything I can about them.
Sure.
And then finding out where my connections are. Do I have connections at the organization, and pinging those folks and asking some pointed questions as well.
In those human connections, I would have expected that to be the number one answer. When we're looking for people, when we have openings, someone's resume can be tremendous, but if we know them, it definitely gives, it's I think more often than not, people hire people they know, right? And I hear that repeatedly from job seekers today is, they knew someone and had a familiarity with them and had a comfort level. They knew what they were getting. And that goes so far, especially when there is so much unemployment today and there's so much turnover. And I feel like maybe they feel like they've been burned or something. So they feel like if they have a comfort level with a person, they know what they're getting. It's going to give that person an edge, right? So those connections, Deb, I can imagine are so helpful and so important. Burn, what about you?
Yeah, definitely having a network. I think what I'm most thankful for is people that have created psychologically safe spaces. So Rex, Felice, she and I still talk 20 years later, and we'll probably talk about you and I chatting today later on.
Tell her
But
hi.
yes, absolutely. But she has created this psychologically safe space for me to bounce some ideas, challenge where I'm coming from. So she's my human AI that helps me grow and be better. And
Mhm.
for the longest time, I thought it was only her that I could reach out to with her plethora of connections. But I was very fortunate to find that there are a lot of friends that don't know how to set up psychologically safe spaces. I'm always hesitant to reach out. Deb, I'm American, or I'm Asian, I'm INTJ. I'm very, very timid in real life despite leadership positions. But I don't like to impose myself on others where I found that
Hmm.
it's, with my friends and my connections, you're not imposing. We want to help you. We want to see you succeed. And so, after being cognizant that there are safe spaces, there are safe people that I can talk to, it's definitely gotten a lot easier to open up and, extend a hand, ask for help.
Hmm.
I love that, and I think it's so important. And let's stay there for a second, because help me if I have people in my network who are in this position, and I want to create that psychologically safe space for them. What, like, help me understand. I think I know what that looks like, but assume I don't. What do I need to do to do that?
So, and it's probably going to be different for everybody as far
Okay.
as creating the space. But for me, the first step is always going to be just having intentions, positive intentions, reaching out to make an earnest attempt to ask how they're doing, what are they
Yes.
feeling,
Hmm.
what's going on in their day to day, outside from the circus, outside from the hardships and everything else that's going on. Bern, what's going on with your dog? How is your husband? How are you adjusting to
Yeah.
life in Phoenix? That's really the first step. And then that just becomes an organic conversation where you're starting to let your guard down because now your personal life is being talked about. And now you feel safe to ask about, what do you think about this particular project, or what do you think about this role? And then it becomes a guided conversation. But that very first step of asking, Bern, how's your dog doing? That always wins me over. But it's that very first step of making that human connection it's important.
So I love that. So yeah, so let's just challenge everyone who wants to help, to be focused on that, right? To pick whatever one person to be intentional about creating a psychologically safe space this week. When you hear this episode, I mean, I think that's helpful for me, Burn. And that word intention is so important, right? Because
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, our time gets prioritized in our, in based on what we prioritize, right? So we have the ability to create that time and to create that space for people, and to be intentional about that, and to not be afraid, not feel guilty because we're not currently seeking a new role. We feel like, because a lot of people feel like we avoid people who are seeking because we do feel guilty and we don't know what to do. So I think that's such a good example of something we can do to help. So I love that. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit more of the emotional landscape. So, job searches, they're not just about resumes, they're about resilience. What emotions rise to the surface most for you kind of during this process, Deb? You mentioned frustrations.
Frustration, sad, scared,
Yeah.
angry. Loss of a job is like loss of a person, right? You go through Kubler-Ross's stages. I'm not at acceptance yet. I'm not there. But I'm also, excited when I get the positive,
Yeah.
also happy, particularly when a coworker tells me, hey, I landed a job, but yet also jealous because their journey's done. My journey is still continuing. Sure. So, I'm not sure, Rex, that it's really one emotion. It's a gamut, and that could be all within a space of an hour of my day. Right. But I remain true to myself and optimistic. Something will come about. I have to be positive about that. But I also let myself have those feelings because you have to work through those. And again, I think something else that's very critical, as Burn was saying, with that psychologically safe space, if you don't have that support, don't be afraid to ask for help. Contact your physician if you need to. Seriously, this is a very challenging, crazy thing that we're going through, right? So, if you have a relationship with a primary care physician or a physician, don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether it's them having you learn cognitive behavior therapy, right? CBT that you can do yourself, right? Or maybe you're at the point where maybe you need some medication, or maybe there's an underlying, cause. But again, don't be afraid to ask for some of that help if you can't cope with some of those emotions that you're feeling, and your support system just isn't there. So,
yeah, I'm, I have a therapist I see every 2 weeks. I'm a big believer in it. So yeah, PCP therapist, help tons of self-help opportunities too. Like you said, with CBT, but yeah, 100%. I think those, this whole show is about a human connection, right? So the importance of human connection. And, I think all of those are great examples, Deb. Burn, how about you?
Yeah, my therapist is probably not going to be happy I'm saying this, but I said every day where I don't bring a toaster with me into the bathtub is a good day. I've won that day. But the emotions, but yeah, to Deb's point, it's not just one singular emotion. It will fluctuate through the day. It used to be where you get really frustrated, you get really depressed, you get really sad. Especially you wake up in the morning, you check your email, and it's just a bunch of rejection letters. And but I think what I've discovered about myself is because it's been such a hard time, it's become easier for me to appreciate the little moments of joy where I can find them. Like a well-crafted rejection letter, something that was personal, something that tells me somebody at least took the time to go through my resume, looked at my LinkedIn, and it was personalized and crafted. I found joy in that, despite it being a rejection letter. So, and then I clung to that joy for the rest of the day, and it just opened up things of, the sun is shining. It's not 115 degrees anymore. So I can go to the pool. So it's about finding that spark of joy and hanging on to it, because it really is a trying time. But if you really try, you will find those moments of joy and hang on to it, because that's important. Hope is important.
Hope is so important. A lot of people say hope is not a strategy, but hope keeps us going, right? Hope is definitely important. So we talked a little bit about practical ways people have helped. Anything else emotionally? So if a friend or family member or former colleague really wanted to help, is there anything else you would say they could do that would help outside of what we've already talked about? Deb.
I think just to listen. Okay. And know that this is going to be forefront in my mind. So it's a conversation that's not going to end anytime soon, until I find a job, right? So that's going to happen.
Sure.
So just listen. If you want to completely ignore me while I speak, that's fine. I'm good with that, but just let me get it out. plain and simple. And I get where everybody says it's going to be okay, but for those of us that are going through it, we don't often feel that way. We don't often feel that it's going to be okay.
Sure.
So allow us to have those feelings,
Right.
and to have those frustrations, or to go through those gamuts. And if we lash out, no, it's not personal. It's just what we're going through at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love what you said earlier about, you allow yourself to have those feelings too. Right. And I think that's important, and to not feel like you have to stay up and on 24/7 and driven to find this next role. Allow yourself to grieve, right? This change in this period. But I love what you're saying too. Like nothing's permanent, right? I mean, I've dabbled in, Zen and Buddhism enough to understand and to understand the importance of understanding that nothing is permanent, right? So whether it's a job, whether it's a period without a job, like, this too shall pass, right? So nothing is permanent, and to have the hope that you guys talked about. Burn, what about you? What would you say for people being helpful?
Two thoughts on that. The first one being, don't pile on to my pity party. I have enough cupcakes. I have enough plates. I have enough, beer and nachos. But I think unhinged, unorthodox distract me with something that's going on in your life. So I feel we're strengthening our bond and having that real conversation. Tell me what's going on with you. What are you facing today? What are the challenges? What did your dog do that annoyed you? I keep coming back to dogs. But it also helps distract me from whatever depression or sadness that I'm feeling, to know that there is somebody else out there that's also going through something else. We all have our own different journeys, and it helps me come out of that pity party and say, well, I feel sorry about that too, as it is happening. So that's the first thought. Come as unhinged as you are with all your problems, and we can work it out together. The second part, what doesn't work for me, and Deb, you touched on this a little bit, is don't tell me it's going to be okay. I know it's going to be okay. You don't need to tell me that. That's not helpful. It just rings hollow. Tell me about what happened at work. What pissed you off about somebody today at work? Then we can have a good laugh about it. I think having that humor-based, having lots of laughter and joy in your life is the most important part of any kind of human connection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Agree. Okay. So last question before we get into just 3 quick rapid fire questions at the very end. But last question related to this, and this has been really insightful. So thanks for being on and sharing your thoughts. If every job seeker listening to this could hear one message from you, what would it be, Deb?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Plain and simple. Do not give up.
Yeah. And Burn.
Even the day after tomorrow is going to be yesterday. So pretty much what Deb said, just poetic.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, that's great. Okay. So now I'm going to quickly ask you each 3 questions we ask every guest, right? So Deb, first, what's one book everyone should read?
So, I could be philosophical and tell you like Let Them or Atomic Habits or something like that. But for me, it's Lord of the Rings.
Ah, perfect. That's great.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And Burn?
You know what? It's funny. I'm currently reading the Titanic Survivors Book Club by Timothy Shaffer. It is so apropos to what we're talking about today, because, in the book, it's survivor's guilt, and what can people who are living with survivor's guilt, how can they help other people finding community? So I think it's a great read. It's a great story.
I love that. And what's one belief you swear by, Deb?
Hard work pays off. You'll be rewarded. My father taught me that. Just hard work. The rewards are limitless.
Right. And Burn?
Surround yourself with unhinged people, because they will bring you joy, and joy is so important.
That is true.
I like it. Unhinged.
That's
authentic, right? Authentic connection.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then last question, how would you finish this sentence? For me, one of the most important ways to human up is to, Deb.
Be present, be authentic, be true.
And Burn.
Be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All good. Hey, thanks so much. Again, we have the other episode coming with the recruiters, and we'll, look forward to that feedback as well. This has been super insightful, and I know people will get some help from this. So thanks for being on. Good luck to you guys in your search. I will definitely be intentional about doing anything I can to help too. So, hey, thanks so much, everyone. We'll talk next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.